Hey there, Joe Brunsman, insurance broker to the stars, and today we are going to be talking about why every MSP client must have, or at least really wants to have, cyber insurance. Let's go ahead and jump into it. If you stick around to the end, there is a link to download a free copy of my latest book on cyber insurance and compliance. Okay, so a little bit of background for you here. It's just increasingly becoming common that MSPs are contractually requiring their clients to carry cyber insurance. If you don't already have that requirement, go ahead and check your contract. If you don't have it now, you're probably going to have it at your next contract renewal. If that doesn't happen, some other party's probably going to contractually require you to actually carry that cyber insurance. So the ultimate question before us here is really, why is this occurring? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? And for whom is it good or bad for? And I would actually argue it's really good for everybody involved. So it's not just that the MSP is being greedy or they're trying to, slough off some liability that otherwise they would carry. No, there's actually a lot of deeper reasons on why you as an MSP client really, really want to make sure that they have cyber insurance. All right, what do those breach laws actually say? So this is a common misconception that we really just kind of have to dig through quickly. So that will lay out kind of the rationale for the rest of this video here. You need to understand the difference between a data holder and a data owner. So who is a data holder under these breach notification laws? That could be your MSP. It could be your software providers. Let's say a cloud provider somewhere. The actual data owners are going to be your business. So you are the data owner. Your MSP could just be the data holder. They're holding onto that data. So what do the breach notification laws say? Well, this is just an example from Texas. You're more than welcome to pause if you want to read through it. You're more than welcome to just look up your own state's breach notification law. But the gist of it is they all pretty much say the same thing, and that's, hey, the data holder, so in this case your MSP, they are not responsible for breach notification costs, credit monitoring, the forensics, et cetera, et cetera. That's on you as the data owner. Really, their only legal responsibility is, hey, if they know a breach occurred, they need to tell you about it. And generally, they kind of have to cooperate with you in that process. But you are going to be the one as the data owner, as the business actually footing the bill. Now, invariably, business owners go, oh my God, that's not fair. That's what I hired these guys for. I don't know anything about technology. Or, hey, I know something about technology, but it wasn't my fault. It was their fault. It's not fair. Well, it's not quite that simple. We really have to understand this rationale here. It's all about spreading the risk, aka spreading those dollars as far and as wide as we can in the market. That's really a foundational concept of risk management and risk mitigation. It's much easier for 1,000 different companies to foot the bill as opposed to one company footing the bill for 1,000 different companies. It also encourages the free market. So just imagine if Microsoft was legally liable for all of those breach costs or all those cyber event costs for every single malicious email that came in through Outlook. I would just imagine that Microsoft would quickly not exist. And if they did exist, can you imagine how expensive a copy of, say, Windows 10 would actually be? Oh my God, it'd be horrendous. You could probably add a couple zeros to that. So in totality, it does actually make a lot of sense, even if you don't like the answer. All right, let's talk about MSP insurance. And there's some reasons why MSP clients don't necessarily want to rely on that insurance to make them whole again following some sort of cyber event or a data breach. Well, first off, the MSP insurance, it's actually just limited in scope. So I do provide tech E&O insurance, aka professional liability insurance, to a number of MSPs across the country. And one thing you have to understand is not everything that could happen at your business, not every breach or ransomware event or cyber event would actually necessarily be considered an E&O claim. Why is that? Well, those policies are set up to cover damages for professional services rendered. So let's give you an example here. You, in your contract, you were paying your MSP to provide backups to your business. Whatever it was, that proverbial switch didn't get flipped. Those backups, for whatever reason, just didn't exist. Okay, you get hit with ransomware. You have to pay all those costs. You go to restore from backups. The backups aren't there. That results in some additional cost to you, right? That would be damages for professional services, in this case, not rendered, right? They were negligent somehow. But imagine if your MSP was liable for all of their clients' doing something crazy, or all of your clients and their staff members potentially clicking on the wrong link, that MSP cost would just be outrageous. I can say almost with certainty here that the MSP just business wouldn't even exist in the world today if MSPs were legally liable for all that type of information. So, once again, the insurance for MSPs is limited. Not everything that could happen in your business would actually be covered by just bringing a claim against your MSP. The next thing you need to realize that MSP insurance is just practically limited in size. So generally that's limited on their revenues, but even if they have, say, unlimited funds that they want to throw my way for E&O insurance, that doesn't mean I can get them unlimited insurance amounts. There is a practical limitation to that. So let's look at this kind of worst case scenario here. All the clients of your MSP are actually hit with ransomware. Now, for your own particular business, let's say you're down 2 weeks, as an example, right? We're going worst case scenario here. Start adding up the business interruption costs, the forensics costs, client notification and credit monitoring, the attorney's fees, public relations person, crisis management person, and on and on and on. That is going to be a very, very large bill. So what that really comes out to is when you have a limited pot of money, it really comes out with, okay, whoever wins that lawsuit first of all those clients, they're probably going to get theirs. And then everybody else, if you're lucky, maybe you'll get a whiteboard and some desk chairs. That is probably not a scenario that you want to find yourself in. So you don't always want to just rely on that MSP's insurance being there, because we could have a worst case scenario in which it just won't be there. Now, this does bring up the discussion of something called a certificate of insurance, aka a COI. You can request a certificate of insurance. It would come from an insurance guy like me. And that would essentially just give you a quick rundown on how much insurance your MSP actually has. Broadly speaking, kind of a minimum of $1 million is a good place to start. It really depends on the MSP, where you're located, the size of their clients, etc. But generally, $1 million is kind of a good place to start when you're looking at those. But if you ever really wanted to know, you can request a COI. Now, of course, I mentioned before, there are scenarios where there's just really no reasonable cause of action for a claim to occur. So let's look at this scenario. All right, a staff member of yours is tricked into wiring $1 million to some hacker somewhere. Well, unfortunately, more common than you think. But now let's say, okay, could you actually bring a claim against your MSP if your staff member was the one that wired that money? Now, that type of event could be covered under an appropriate cyber policy. But let's say you want to bring a claim against your MSP to try and recoup those funds. Well, think about how long that would take. So first of all, you're already out that $1 million, and now you have to fight probably a very prolonged legal battle. So you got to think, okay, how much is that going to cost you when you're paying your attorneys to try and claw that money back from your MSP's insurance policy? Now, of course, it's your attorneys fighting the attorneys provided for by an insurance company. Maybe you would actually get some sort of settlement to try and avoid prolonged litigation there. Well, it's probably not going to be $1 million. And you'd have to even really think, would you even win in the end? Hey, maybe that insurance company is just trying to set the standard in your jurisdiction that this is not on the MSP's. It's just not on the MSP to pay for these types of costs. They're trying to set that precedent there, so they will fight you tooth and nail. They will fight you to the bitter end to try and avoid that. So you always have to think in your mind, hey, even if you can find a way to bring this claim, then you got to think about how long it's going to take. And then you got to think, okay, in the end, you could still lose and get nothing. So you're already at the $1 million plus all these attorney's fees. I will say anytime a claim is brought, there are two parties that always win: the plaintiff's attorney and the defense attorney. Everybody else is just up in the air. So probably not a scenario or a road that you want to travel down, when it's just so much easier to have an appropriate cyber insurance policy that you can lean against to try and make you whole again. All right, so finally, we're gonna wrap up here with why you should actually demand that your MSP make this a requirement, not only for your business, but for all of their other clients as well. So let's look at this scenario. Let's say your MSP has $1 million in E&O insurance. Well, some other company was the one that wired that $1 million to a hacker, and they actually sue your MSP. So now they want that $1 million from the MSP. However they put together that legal justification, we'll leave that out of this conversation. But they're suing for $1 million. Well, the MSP's insurance, generally it works that defense costs come out of that limit of liability. So let's say that they defend against that claim and the MSP actually wins. Well, now the MSP only has $750,000 remaining for their insurance for that particular policy period. Well, now let's say, okay, something happens at your business. The MSP makes a mistake. Your backups don't work after a ransomware event. We talked about this before. Well, now let's say you're out $1 million, right? You add up all the costs additional that, those backups could have saved you. And now you want your $1 million. Well, that MSP could only have $750,000 remaining. And those defense limits are actually discoverable through the discovery process if a claim is brought. So the most you're going to get out of that is actually $750K. Now, let's say you actually had a legitimate claim. Well, they already spent a quarter of their insurance defending a baseless claim. You're only going to get $750K. I mean, maybe you could try and go after their personal assets. That is really, really hard to do. Generally, very, very rare, except in kind of the medical malpractice world. But what does this really boil down to? Because the MSP didn't require everyone to have their own cyber insurance, now you're out $250K because the other guy had a baseless claim and drew that policy down when, realistically or ideally, it should have been there for you. With that, I always get this is really wrapping up here, but I always get this final question. What type of cyber insurance do I need? How much do I need, et cetera? It really depends on your business. There is no one size fits all. I do this for a living all day, every day. All right, with that, if you are as happy as this puppy after watching this video, this is my latest book, Damage Control, Cyber Insurance and Compliance. This is where you can go to download the book for free, also available on Amazon if you would like a Kindle or physical version. With that, like, share, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, keep them out of trouble, talk to your MSP. I think it's pretty rational here that you would actually want your MSP to require cyber insurance of all their clients, so don't get put off if they ask of it or if they ask you to carry that cyber insurance. With that, stay safe.